Bonjour tout le monde! Welcome back to We in France. I'm Diane, and today let's throw it back to the early days for this video. Now, moving abroad, it's often painted as an adventure full of excitement, fresh starts, travel, a fairy tale life, thanks to social media for that one. And while all of that can be true, what you don't hear about quite as much are those bumps in the road, things that remind you that life does not always follow this neatly laid out plan. Also, have you ever heard this saying that goes something like, if you want God to laugh, tell him about your plans? Well, I'm not religious, but I found that saying to be really true, especially when it comes to my move abroad. And as someone who really finds comfort in routines and gets majorly thrown off by wrenches being thrown in her plans, let's just say that moving abroad has been great at helping me to loosen up in that regard. But what I want to get into today are all the things that did not go to plan when I moved to France. So let's go. All right, now before moving, I had so many expectations about how things would go once I got to France. Some of these things were based on research, others complete ignorance, and others on pure optimism. And yet reality, as it often does, had different plans. So here are these 6 things that didn't go quite as expected when I moved. All right, number 1. I didn't magically become fluent in French after a year, just like that. I want to know, did you believe this one too? Because I thought before moving to France that if I just moved to the country and applied myself reasonably well, that one day the language would just click. You know, at that year mark or a year or two, you just wake up one day and boom, you're fluent. Except anyone out there who speaks more than one language, you know it doesn't work like that. You know, I'm not just going to wake up after a year and speak French like my native speaking husband. Maybe if you're under about 14 or 15 years old, if you're super motivated, if you're 100% immersed in the language and you really don't even speak your native tongue very much. If you're constantly talking to different people in different contexts all day, every day, yeah, your progress is going to be a lot quicker. But regardless, it's not automatic and it's not some magical process that happens. It's not osmosis. Now, this can be a really hard lesson to learn if you're a bit of a perfectionist like I was, and you see this goal of being fluent kind of crumbling before your eyes with each passing day. I have majorly relaxed in that department, probably a little too far in the other direction now, but don't get me wrong, living here, my French has obviously improved immensely, and I'm proud of how far I've come. I'm fluent, I can navigate daily life just fine, but that road to becoming fluent or fluent-ish is long, it's humbling, and there are days when you're gonna feel like you're not making any progress. Backsliding is real, and along the way, even just a few months in, there were days where I impressed myself because I effortlessly had really great conversations, which was amazing. And then other times I'd blank on the simplest word, I'd start panicking or zone out, and these things happen, right? But you have to put in the time, like anything else, you have to put in the work. And of course, you might pick up enough French and become conversational or even reasonably okay just by being exposed to the language, being in France. But to actually learn the ins and outs, the grammar, the other intricacies of speaking French well, it's not something that just magically happens. Think about, people you grew up with, their parents, their grandparents. I had friends whose parents lived in the US for decades and they didn't speak English. So it's not automatic. You have to put in the work, and you will not become a perfect French speaker just because you live in France. And on this point, lastly, I've also learned that language learning is not linear. I kind of stupidly thought it would be, having no foreign language experience. And really, no matter how long I live here, there are always going to be cultural nuances, slang, expressions that escape me. And that's okay. I'm not French. The goal here is progress, not perfection. All right, number 2, we never had a wedding in France. Now, originally, the plan was to have a small civil ceremony in the US when Tom was on vacation, so we could at least get married on paper, and then I could start my visa process so I could then move to France to be with him and start our life together, at least for a little while. I'm going to get to more on this on point 3. But we planned to then have a larger wedding in France at some point in the undetermined future with Tom's family. But that never happened. What did happen is after we were officially married in the US at my local town hall, our thought process changed. And between a bit of family drama, also just realizing what we wanted and realizing how much a wedding was going to cost, how much stress and planning would go into it to have people come from overseas and all that, we just said, you know what, it's not important. So we decided to not move forward with that French wedding. And I don't regret it. The only thing I regret is that Tom's family here in France was not present at our little stateside ceremony back in New Jersey. And that was originally because we planned to have a wedding, a bigger one in France at a later date. But that said, regrets aside, our wedding was beautiful. It was simple. I'll try to put up a few pics here. And I was never someone who was crazy about weddings or dreamed of like a big lavish day since I was a little girl. That just wasn't me. And I think you have to let me know in the comments if you agree that in the US, at least, the wedding industry is overblown and women grow up thinking we need this big day, larger than life, spend all this money. And that's never really what I wanted. I think the relationship is more important. And unless you're extremely wealthy, I'm not, I think the money is better spent on maybe a deposit for a house or something to start off your life together well, instead of spending all that money in the blink of an eye on a big day that's just like over like that. Now, something else that might not go to plan when you're abroad is internet access. Sites might be blocked due to geo restrictions, threats are more prevalent when you're not on your home network, and to keep your online experience safe and stress-free, let me introduce you to today's sponsor, NordVPN. They're all about making the internet better than it is today, and you'll definitely want to check them out via my link below at nordvpn.com/weinfrance. Their virtual private network, the VPN, helps you stay safe online whether you're home or abroad, especially when you're out using public Wi-Fi networks. You'll be protected from malware and phishing scams. Your data is going to stay private, and your activity online will not be tracked. NordVPN basically tells the internet to mind its own business. Now, you can browse the web without those prying eyes, unsafe internet connections, or that creepy feeling of constantly being watched with just one click. They even have a feature called Threat Protection Pro that will protect you from fake web stores looking to scam you. Think of NordVPN as an invisible fence for the internet that keeps you safe by encrypting your internet traffic and protecting your online identity. Just download the app, which looks like this, and browse safely and privately with the fastest VPN on the planet. One account will protect up to 10 devices, and NordVPN offers 24/7 customer support. To start browsing safely now, risk-free, get my exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 months extra on a 2-year plan with my link. Again, that's nordvpn.com/weinfrance. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Now back to the video. All right, number 3, we stayed in France. Now, this is the most surprising one. Believe it or not, staying in France long-term after getting married in the US was not the plan. At least that wasn't the plan at first. Let me explain. We got married in New Jersey. We thought that I would move to France temporarily, which I got my visa for and did. Then in France, start Tom's green card paperwork for the move to the US. And then when that was ready, maybe about 2 years later, we'd move and start our life in the US. And that was the plan for a while, until it wasn't, because our plans changed, our perspectives shifted. And when we thought about it, healthcare, our financial wants and needs, just everything became clear. And at some point, France just started feeling like the right choice for us. And voila, we've been here ever since. And it's really funny when I go back and think about that, how different life could have been for us if we'd followed through with moving to the US. I don't know if you ever think about the path that you didn't take. I wonder, would I have missed France the way I sometimes miss home now? Would I speak French well? Would I feel like a foreigner in my own country? Would I be able to visit France often and have a relationship with Tom's family if I had never started life here with Tom? Would relationships in the US be stronger? What would I be doing for work? Like all these questions, right? And the big one is, would I feel like I was making the right choice? Did I make the right choice by staying in France? I don't know, but I think I did. I think I made the right choice. And what I do know is that France is home now, and even if that wasn't the original plan, as long as we're happy here, we're staying. All right, number 4, my loved ones got sick. Now, when you first move abroad, if you're like me and you were in your 20s back in the day when you moved, you think of all the positives, you're kind of like hyped up on all that positivity, and you don't spend too much time on getting bogged down with the what ifs and what might happen in 5 or 10 years. That seemed like an eternity into the future. I was excited. I was newly married. We were starting our life together, and I had this new perspective, life in France, and I was psyched to embark on this new adventure and have Tom by my side in his homeland. I didn't spend really any time thinking about the what ifs or any negativity that could bring me down, except when bad things happen, they can make you just feel like that rug has been pulled out from under you and catch you by surprise. Being far away can be super challenging when people you love are suffering, they're sick, with whatever, medical issues, psychological issues, anything, and you so badly just want to be everywhere at once. You want to be there to support them. And sometimes I'm hard on myself and I think, well, you should have thought about that. But would thinking about this stuff have helped me in the moment or just kind of brought me down? I don't know. In retrospect, I'm not sure, but I'd like to think it would have better prepared me for the shock of things kind of getting hard. You know, as someone who's a natural helper, someone who's very empathetic, maybe to a fault, it pains me. It did pain me, and it currently still does when I hear about loved ones going through something hard and I can't be there. It's not the same on a phone. You know, it counts for a lot being there. And over the past several years, I've made no secret of it. I've talked about it on this channel. Several loved ones have gotten sick. The one I talked about was my mom getting sick and dying in October of 2021. And yeah, it's been hard. All right, number 5, making friends as an adult was harder than expected. Now, I assumed that moving to France would just naturally lead me to making a bunch of friends pretty easily right off the bat. You know, I'm reasonably outgoing, friendly, and after all, I was like living in their country, you know, like, of course, I'm cool, be my friend, right? But what I didn't account for was how challenging it would be to kind of break into these social circles as an adult, especially in a different culture. You know, it's not that the French are unfriendly, but friendships here tend to be built slowly over time. You know, casual small talk, I've talked about that too in this video. It doesn't automatically lead to deeper relationships. And being the new person in an environment where people have, you know, known each other since they were kids can be intimidating. A lot of people in France have known some of their best friends for decades since they were in elementary school. And also, when you first arrive, your French is not going to be great for most of us. It's not easy to communicate. So honestly, think about what you have to offer people. In your home country, if you met someone who had just moved and they could barely speak your native language and they tried to be friends, would you be open to it, or would it feel kind of tedious and awkward? It is awkward for both parties, and you could feel really isolated, especially in the early days, and even lonely until your language skills develop and you get more confidence. Now, over time, I've met my people, some French, some expats passing through, or immigrants like me, but it took effort. You know, I put myself out there. I told you I went to a Mormon church once, not religious. I went to all different types of things. I said yes to invitations. I did things with people I really didn't want to do, you know, just to get myself out there and to get used to speaking and being uncomfortable. And all the people I'm friends with, or at least friendly with to this day, were people I've met in one of two places, either the park by my house when I'd walk Dagny or the gym. And it wasn't instant, but it was worth it. All right, next, number 6, culture shock and adapting. It'll take longer than you think. This one was a little bit more insidious, but I think it's easy to assume that after 3 or 6 months, that culture shock, boom, you've surpassed that. It's a thing of the past. You don't need to deal with that stuff anymore. You know, that you kind of graduate past that newcomer stage after a couple of months. But the reality is, culture shock, it can kind of sneak up on you. And of course, there are big differences that kind of like smack you in the face when you arrive in France that you can't ignore. But there are a million little culture shocks that kind of reveal themselves as you're going along. And even today, sometimes I'll see something I've never seen, or just, you know, have an experience where I'm kind of uncomfortable or perplexed or even confused by something that I've just discovered. And if you've been watching a while, you know I've lived here for a little over a decade. So these sneaky French culture shocks, they might become particularly apparent when you move to a different area of France, when you encounter new people with new accents you're not used to, maybe change jobs, or just have a French experience that's new to you. And that can happen whether you're a month in or even 10 years down the road. Culture shock, I don't feel, is a one and done kind of thing where like you magically integrate and in 3 months it's over, done with, you are French-ish. Culture shock and adapting and integrating takes time, and it's something I don't think I was prepared for. So if you look at culture shock as one big monolith instead of all these little parts that add up, looking back, it's clear that when it felt especially stressful for me, whether 1 month in, 10 years in, whatever, and when life in France kind of felt insurmountable for me, it was when I was stressed about other life problems too. Like something else was on my mind, and then all these little French shocks kind of bugged me, you know? So kind of adding culture shock to the stress of life was a lot to deal with, and that's something that caught me by surprise. So there you have it, 6 things that didn't go exactly as planned when I started my life in France. Let me know if anything surprised you. You know, some things they took longer than expected, some didn't pan out at all, and others honestly challenged me in ways I never anticipated, and I'm thankful for that. And despite it all, I'm grateful. It was worth it, even with the snags along the way. So as always, I want to throw it over to you. Tell me if you've ever had a big life move where everything didn't go exactly to plan. What happened? How'd you react? Did you learn anything from it? Talk to me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And also, I am so close to 100,000 subscribers, so if you like what I do here and you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. It is free, so please do it. And with that, thank you for watching, as always, and I'll see you right back on We in France soon. Salut!